Alex Pettifer.
Is he would be lucky to be the court jester.
I just love
He is a
this.
peasant shoveling garbage and dirt and cow pats. Mindy says like, okay, that's a point worth considering, Mr. Samuels. I will try to make friends. I will try to meet people. And she walks into the hall, and Mr. Samuels is like, go get him, Tiger. And then she immediately gets pushed around, and someone literally pushes her just from the doorway. Mr. Samuels can see this. He's watching this happen. They push her around. She gets pushed into the floor, and someone says, loser, and then walks away. And then he goes, maybe one day.
Maybe one day what?
Like, maybe one day the world will accept you.
That
Either way,
teacher award.
he's a teacher and he just watched a student get pushed into the floor.
I feel like I'm gonna have to make a playlist that's just bullying videos.
Anyways, that's not important either because it cuts.
Oh.
Don't worry, that's not important at all. It cuts to them at lunch, and Mindy and Jody's sitting there. Mindy walks over and she puts her tray down, and she says to Jody, I suggest, and I was thinking about it, and we should approach Whitney and ask her to stop bullying us. And Jody says, no, that's a terrible idea. And Mindy says, well, consider, Whitney is also a person. So maybe if we go approach her as adults and just say, you know, we would appreciate it if you would stop, maybe she will. Maybe she'll just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And Mindy says, that's, no, she's the worst. What are you talking about? And then Mindy says, she hasn't been that horrible. What happens next on screen?
I want to say a montage of her being a horrible person.
Ding! Exactly what happens. You want to guess what the things are in the montage for bonus points?
The only thing I have, I definitely picture something goes down in the girl's bathroom.
Oh, no. We don't go that. No.
No?
It's less personal and more generic.
Oh, okay.
I'll say this. First one happens to Mindy. Second one happens to Jody. Third one happens to Mindy and Jody. Any guesses?
I feel like I don't know exactly in what context, but I feel like Whitney at some point walks over Mindy.
No.
Oh,
We
okay.
almost... Actually, in these shots, we don't see Whitney at all.
Oh.
So it's not even necessarily clear that Whitney was involved, except that it was preceded by the phrase, she hasn't been that horrible. If we hadn't gotten that, it would have just been a series of unfortunate events. Because what happens is, Mindy is standing there in gym attire, and then she just gets absolutely pummeled with dodgeballs.
Oh.
Ha ha ha! What a creative and interesting... Anyways, Jody is then standing there. Next shot, Jody's standing there. She's at band practice where everybody else is dressed in band gear, and for some reason she's not. She's supposed to be playing the piccolo, but it's clear that Victoria Justice has just been handed a piccolo for the first time. And she's walking around, and then somebody throws some random crap at her, and it's not even clear what it is, just throws something at her, and she stops, and the entire line behind her bumps into her, and then they all start shouting at her while she doesn't know how to fake play her instrument.
Oh.
Ha 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 ha. And then Mindy and Jody are getting ready to ride their bikes, and they pull on the handlebars to pull it away from the lock thing, and what do you know? The entire bike, both of them, completely disassemble
Oh.
in their hands.
That feels like a crime.
It sucks. It's so bad. And so then we cut to back to the two of them at lunch, and they're like, okay, maybe she has been that bad. And then we cut over to Whitney's friends, and you can see Whitney's friend, one of them is being incredibly inane, whatever. And then Peyton List, I don't know if you're familiar with the actress.
Oh, yes, I know Peyton List. She
Yeah.
was actually in Light as a Feather.
Oh, yeah, that's where I know her from.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
Oh, she was also, more relevant, she was in A Sister's Nightmare.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. She was the daughter. Card in the corner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good card in the corner. So, her name's Mackenzie in this movie, and she is a junior. All these characters we've talked about so far have been seniors. She's a junior, and she is acting as the intern to Whitney, the mean girl.
So when Whitney leaves, she's going to be the new Regina George?
Exactly.
Okay.
What Mackenzie does is she comes over and she's got a bag, and Whitney's like, took you long enough, and then Mackenzie brings over her lunch, and she brings 3 meatball subs for this jock guy, a single boiled egg for Whitney's best friend, and a center cut steak, rare, for Whitney. And it's a big steak. Like a huge steak.
That's so sad. The Outcasts got her a real steak, yet nobody could get Alex Feta for a real slice of pizza. And then
Correct, yes. No one could get him a real slice of pizza. Card in the corner. And so, I guess I should have let you do that. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Well, then after she delivers the lunches or whatever, Mackenzie stands there acting as kind of a doorman for our nerdy characters. They approach anyway. Whitney says, "No, let them approach," and she says, "Quote, I want to hear what Bill Nye and the lesbian have to say." Real tasteful writing. And I mean, I knew I wasn't gonna like the movie, but I didn't know it was gonna make me so mad.
Yeah, I don't really understand why you're so upset at me. It's not like
This is your channel.
Yes. And I said, here's what happened. I said, oh, my brother...
We don't have time for this. We do not have time for this.
Okay.
I'll say this so we can just cut it short. She has a plenty good case for why it's not her fault. I'm just mad.
Okay.
Okay. Is that good? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So they make their case, and Whitney says, you know what? Until this moment, I didn't realize that I actually respect you. And they were like, oh, okay. And she says, I respect your unwillingness to change in order to be cool. Unlike these idiots, and she like gestures to her friends, who all like stare at her blankly, and I'm thinking, why are you friends with them then? If you don't like them, why are you hanging out with them? You're the most popular person in the school. Pick people you like.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
Anyways, she says, I respect you. I'm inviting you to a party this weekend at Colin's house. And Colin looks at her like, no, please, don't invite them. And the other people are like, you're inviting them? And then she just goes like, have a good day. See you later. And they're like, yes, cool. We're going to hang out with the cool kids. And they go back to their table.
That's not going to go well, is it?
Oh, you think? On a scale of 1 to 10, how certain are you that this is a trap?
So certain.
Anyways, that's not a number, but you're right. The main character, it doesn't even tell us what day of the week this was. I assume, let's just say it was Friday, okay? Let's just say it was Friday at lunch they got this. Because that's going to be important later. Not really important, but important to a point I want to make. They go to the party, and for some god-awful reason, Mindy has decided to bring a house plant. She's like holding a house plant.
You never go to anyone's house without something. Empty-handed, you know?
That's almost word for word what she says is her reason. She says, Mom always told me you never go to a party empty-handed.
I was raised with a similar, my parents told me the same thing. But, you know, you gotta read the room, Mindy. You don't bring a house plant. First of all, don't bring a plant. That's just work for the person you're giving it to. Bring chips. You could bring some soda. You could bring a bag of cookies.
You've made me so proud. I was about to say, if we went to a party and you brought a houseplant, I would throw you and the houseplant out my window. I would push you out of my moving car. I will not be seen at a party with someone carrying around a houseplant.
But she sets it down though, right?
No, she's just standing there with it. It's on a hook and she's just holding it. And she looks around the party and she says, the mean attractiveness of this party is statistically significant.
What? Okay, real talk.
And you know, okay, hold on. You know I'm a math person.
Yeah, you are.
It was at this moment that I called you and left you that very angry voicemail.
Yeah, it was pretty. I feel it was a bit uncalled for.
I'm still mad.
I'm in the call with you now. I'm aware that you're upset. Here's something that's interesting that I don't know if they're going to address. It doesn't seem like it. Granted, Victoria Justice's character doesn't seem like a shallow person, but Mindy just seems kind of annoying. She kind of
Oh, you think Mindy's annoying now? She gets so much more annoying. Just wait till she poisons everyone.
What?
Okay. Just wait.
Oh my goodness, what movie is this?
Not even in this scene. That happens near the end. That's like the climax of the film. But don't worry, it's not important. Colin, the homeowner, or I guess the homeowner's son, he's there, and the very first thing he does is he walks right up to Mindy and Jody, and he's very drunk, and he immediately pees directly into the houseplant.
Oh, weird. Is Colin played by Evan Yogia?
No.
Okay.
Colin, I'll tell you when Avin, whatever his name is, shows up.
Okay.
He's actually the only good character in the film.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah, he won me over. If he hadn't appeared in this film, I think I would have died.
For those of you who don't know who I'm talking about Beck from Victorious.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
That's
as
good.
A character, and even his writing wasn't that bad. He was kind of fun. Which is pretty infuriating when everyone else in the movie is really annoying. So Colin, this basically nameless character, walks up and he pees directly into the houseplant that is being held by Mindy. In front of both of them. And then Mindy is like standing there awestruck, and both of them are just looking at his penis the whole shot. We don't see his penis, obviously. And then he leans in with both hands on Mindy's face. He kisses her and says, "Have fun, hon." And then he goes to play beer pong.
I mean,
you cool with that?
No.
Okay.
But
hold on. So, you know how houseplants, when you pour water, there's usually a tray underneath that catches the excess water?
Yeah.
Now this houseplant is dripping pee everywhere.
Oh.
And Jody says, "Is that really how I saw my first human penis?"
Oh.
Then, some guy, nameless extra, walks over. He's walking past Mindy, and he just casually takes the houseplant from her and walks upstairs.
Why?
No one even addresses it. Mindy's not even looking. She's just holding the houseplant looking at Jody, and an extra sweeps it out of her hands. Like the rest of us aren't supposed to notice that that's super weird.
What did he need it for? Do we see him again?
We don't see him again. We never meet him. No one knows who he is.
We don't see the houseplant again either.
It would have made more sense for a ghost to take the houseplant.
Weird.
So, some random party goer takes the houseplant upstairs while it's dripping pee all over the floor, all over his shoes, all over the people nearby. Another guy walks over. What was the guy's name? Avon?
Yeah.
Yeah, he walks over. His character's name is Dave in this movie, so I'm going to call him Dave.
Okay.
Dave is cool. He walks over and he points at see, like I said, I mix up the characters' names all the time. He points at Mindy and he says, MIT, right? And Wellesley? And he's just guessing what schools they're going to, which, like, that never comes up again, and it's not explained why he thinks she's going to Wellesley. So he says, like, MIT and Wellesley? How are you enjoying the party? And even though they've just gotten there, Jody says...
peed on.
Yeah, they've had... There's pee all over the floor, and they're all just standing next to it. Jody says, we haven't been roofied yet, and he says, wow, aren't you entertaining? I'm sorry, wow, aren't you enchanting? And then he introduces himself as Dave, and they introduce themselves or whatever. And Whitney shows up, and she says, hey, you girls follow me. And she sends Mackenzie away to go get them drinks. And the girls play some beer pong, and they get really competitive about it, and they start drinking. Uh-oh, this is where I gotta point you to the reviews on IMDb, where about half of them are all complaining that this movie promotes teens drinking. That's not the biggest problem in this movie! This movie's bad!
Yes.
They play beer pong. The girls are getting really competitive. They're all dancing. The music's playing. Generally having a pretty good time. They're having a fun time at this party.
So, yeah, I don't like this because this makes me positive that it's a trap because the losers can never go because they have this fun time of their lives, but then it turns out it was all a lie.
Yeah.
Because
I was about to say, Whitney then turns to Mackenzie and nods.
Oh, no.
Mackenzie picks up a microphone and says, Whitney would like to say a few words, and then hands the mic to Whitney, which I'm like, why don't you just hand her the mic? You interrupted the party to say someone else wants to speak. Just hand her the mic and she can start speaking. Whatever. So, Whitney says, some of you might have noticed that we've got some new people here. Says their names, their full names. It's like a Jody Schellenberger, I think, and Mindy Lipschitz. They tried to give them the nerd names. Ooh, we're losers. And she says she's made a video so everyone can learn a little bit more about them. And then the TV turns on. And there's some animated intro. And what do you think is in this? It's a montage. What do you think is in this montage? It's about Jody, by the way. It's entirely about Jody.
Well, I feel like the guitar playing we saw her secretly record for sure.
Okay, yep. That's one of the things in there.
I mean, they couldn't get footage of her throwing the rock and saying zombie fascist.
No. This is all footage from the same camera angle in her room.
Oh, so her changing?
No, they don't show her changing. Thank Jesus.
Oh, okay. That's good, because that's a crime.
Well, everything you're seeing is a crime, for sure. She explains the crime in detail later.
Oh, okay. Well, if they don't show her, like, in a bra or anything, that's good. I guess next thing that they would show besides her singing...
Oh, no. Remember, this movie's very generic at this point. So what are things that would be embarrassing for a girl to show
Is she
that
gonna like
aren't the
pop
girl
as
cheating?
it?
What?
Is she gonna pop as it?
No, no.
Okay.
No, she's Victoria Justice. She's beautiful already.
I mean, she popped as it on Victorious.
Yeah, well, that's because she wasn't supposed to be secretly hot. In this movie, she's not supposed to be secretly hot either, but for some reason they couldn't make her not hot.
I don't know.
Okay, so they show her making out with a pillow that has Adam Scott's face on it. The actor, Adam Scott.
What's he from?
He was in Parks and Rec.
Oh, him.
Yeah, I mean, he's
I
fine.
might be thinking of someone else. Okay.
Yeah, you probably are. Then Dad coming in and explaining sex to her, which she's...
See, these are not the cliches. What I said were the cliches. These are not.
I'm not sure they are cliches, but they're definitely really dumb. And then also, Dad pokes his head in and he says, "Hey, catch," and tosses her a box of tampons. And then she turns to her dad and says, what's the most embarrassing thing she could say?
She needs a different size?
"No, Dad, I need maximum flow tampons."
Okay, I was right.
And everybody is just like yucking it up. Ah ha ha ha! This is such a funny goof. And Jody runs away crying, and Mindy's like, "Jody, wait!" And she runs away. And then the only person who's not laughing is Dave, and he's like, "This was a bad goof. I don't appreciate that." Even though he was like hanging out with Whitney to this point and ongoing. Anyways,
Here's
cut
something.
to
Can
Monday.
I just say, like, hold on, before we go to Monday, real quick. I think Mindy bringing the houseplant could have been funny a little bit if they had, like, done more with it. Like,
Oh, you're saying
so
if they had delivered on a joke instead of having a random specter waft through the scene and take the houseplant upstairs while it dripped piss all over the floor?
well, yeah, I don't think they needed the pee or the assault that went with it. But no, I was just thinking, like, after they humiliate Jody, and Mindy's like, "Well, Jody, wait." She, like, takes the houseplant, and she's like, "You don't deserve it." She storms out, but she's holding it, but it's too big, and she's kind of, like, having trouble leaving dramatically because of this dumb houseplant she brought. I don't know. I think that could have been funny.
Yeah, could have been. That's a possibility for a joke even. But no, we don't get that.
Okay.
Cut to Monday. Okay. Mackenzie is driving a car and she's picking up all the popular girls. And the dumb best friend of Whitney is like waving to the gardener, and the gardener's really happy and waving back. And then Whitney's like, "Don't wave to him, ugh!" And then Mackenzie, drive, and then they drive. That becomes irrelevant later. Jody is not at school, and Mindy is calling her, but she's calling her with a headset that was also from the early 2000s.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I don't know why they bothered putting these things in the movie. It's not even a wireless headset. It's a wired headset from the early 2000s.
It's
the kind
weird.
of thing, like, we live in 2020. This movie was made in 2017. Technology did not advance that much between then and now, relative to, like, I don't, like...
I mean, again, if they just made it a joke, like, all they have to do is Jody says, "Oh my gosh, can you please come to the 21st century?" And then we just move along, you know? Like...
Yeah, well...
and then she would say whatever her dumb reason for having these possessions are.
No. They didn't make it a joke. They didn't make it a joke. They just think that's a normal thing for a nerd to have because she's a nerd. Then it cuts to Whitney and Jody's not picking up. Whitney and Dave and her friends are all hanging out, and Dave is like, Whitney, what you did on Saturday was really messed up. And I'm like, why are you waiting until now to bring it up?
He had to
and
think
Whitney
about
says,
it.
Whitney says that all she needed to do, which this is not a reaction to what you did was messed up, and then she responds, this is how she did it. She says, all I needed to do was teach myself how to hack a webcam, figure out Jody's IP address, and then trick her into responding to a spyware program I learned how to write.
So wait, this is the equivalent of you saying, hey, when you robbed that old lady, that was a pretty messed up thing to do. And I was like, well,
You
see,
just
all I
laid
had to
out your
do
plan,
was... I hit her
You lay
over
out
the
an
head.
incredibly complex plan. And by the way, if she's this good a hacker, what else is she good at?
She's Whitney.
I mean, she's clearly, it's not a small feat. I mean, granted, on an iMac G3, there are going to be security vulnerabilities that that haven't been corrected for because it's an old piece of hardware.
Keep the same old computer, though, and just keep getting the updates?
Well, I don't know if the G3 will accept the newest updates because I'm pretty sure the operating system is too big for the hard drive on there. I mean, the second generation of the iMac G3 had a disk drive. The first gen didn't. That's how old it is.
Yeah.
So, it's probably not updated. No. Anyways, then Whitney, Dave says, what you did was demonic. It was medieval. And then Whitney says, I will not allow Big Bang Theory and her frizzy-haired lapdog to roam the halls of the school thinking that for 1 second they are my equals. And to that I say, isn't that what you did for all of the back half of Friday and then all the time up till and during the party until you, you just said, I will not let them think for 1 second they are my equals. But you let them do that, you let them think that for more than 1 second.
It's weird, too, because it's, a little late in the game, and, that statement seems like in a different movie where... One, they just started going to this school, and Whitney and her cronies needed to show them how things work around here. But if y'all have been going to school together, they know. They just asked you to be nice to them.
They said, there's no reason we can't be equals. We can't be, they kind of hint at the idea of them being equals. I think they do use the word equals.
Okay, yeah, in that we're human beings and we'd like you to stop bullying us.
No, don't be ridiculous. Anyways, Mindy goes to Jody's house to cheer Jody up. And she brings 3 things to cheer Jody up. This is where the movie has kind of stopped being generic, and the movie will pick up the pace. My notes will pick up the pace as well. Okay. So Mindy brings 3 things for Jody to cheer Jody up. A book on Tesla, because she's a nerd. Frozen cookies, which is an insane thing to do to cookies.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd like that or not.
No. When she says frozen cookies, you might be thinking oh, that might be good. I don't really know. I've never had a cold cookie. No. She says, these will be ready in a bit. She intends to thaw the cookies.
Oh.
Who stores cookies in frozen form?
That's...
They are cooked cookies. They are made.
Yeah, I have nothing to say to
The
that.
other thing she brings is a mint. And Jody reaches her hand out to take the mint. She's like, curled up in bed, by the way. And that the Mint is like, oh, now she wants the Mint, haha. So then Mindy says, we'll beat the fascists at their own game. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Mindy says, quote, we're gonna be popular, not lame top 40 popular, awesome popular. What does that mean?
I guess not Kiss FM.
I guess. I don't know what that means.
I don't know. I guess maybe Nickelback versus some other band that is cooler. I don't.
Shrug emoji. The next day, they're handing out posters to try to get kids to join the revolution.
Oh.
The plan is they're going to become popular, and their popularity plan...
Wait, question, before you go on. Where did they print these out?
No explanation given.
Okay, continue.
They're handing out these posters, and kids are basically just immediately throwing them in the trash. They're not interested. And the idea is that there are a lot of people that Whitney and her gang have made feel little, and so we're going to try to gather them all together and start a revolution that way.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they're waiting near like a classroom because they're going to start their meetings, and almost nobody shows up. The people who show up are, first, Claire shows up. And Claire is a Girl Scout. And her whole...
How old is she?
She's hold on one second. She's, I believe a senior as well. But it doesn't really matter. Her whole characterization is that she's a Girl Scout who's kind of quiet, and later on we learn she's a lesbian.
Okay.
And that's it. That is the extent of her characterization.
Makes sense.
They almost call it out during the movie.
Like, we don't...
Is.
Okay.
So then the next person is a scary black power lady. Her name is Sugar Jones, and anytime she's on screen for the first part of this, hip-hop is playing.
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. Sugar Jones walks up, and she's a big, powerful black lady who don't need no man. And she sits down, and she's the only other person who comes to the revolution. So it's the Girl Scouts and black power lady, Sugar Jones. And the Girl Scout girl is like, we could go door to door trying to spread the message, talk to people in their own homes where they'll feel more comfortable. And Sugar Jones pipes in with, and I'm putting the biggest air quotes I can possibly muster around this, feminist talking points, where she's just shooting down the idea of the Girl Scouts because they put women down. And again, I put huge air quotes around it because nothing she says sounds like real arguments. It all sounds like what someone who wants to parody feminism would say.
Or like the joke is like having these views, basically.
Yeah, which is a pretty messed up thing to do. Especially in a movie that otherwise leans pretty far, not pretty far left, but at least is pretty accepting of people. The movie, you can't fault the movie for being anti, I don't know, whatever. It just seems like a really bad place and target for a joke. Anyways, Sugar Jones, for the first part of her, like, when we see her, by the way, she was in detention the other time. But we only see that for, like, a microsecond before it goes back to, them at their bikes.
That's weird.
They talk.
Wait, so that makes it clear to me that there definitely was a scene in detention.
Right. Yeah. Especially since the two of them, as soon as she starts walking over, one of them goes, "Oh my God, is that Sugar Jones?" And then like they already know her.
Okay, so it's weird that they decided to cut that, but they do keep the guy peeing in the house plant.
And the whole bringing the house plant. Well, see, that's funny. I mean,
Mm,
I put big air quotes around funny, but it's funny.
okay.
Anyways, they have almost no traction, and they say we need to get somebody who can like really stir up the people.
Hmm.
We should, and then they both turn to each other and they go, "We should get Virginia Vanderkamp." Like we're all supposed to know who the hell that is. And then they give us like a flashback of who Virginia Vanderkamp is, and it's like she's a very she's I don't know how to describe her. She's very well, they specifically say in third grade she'd already locked down most likely to succeed. She's the head of a bunch of clubs, and she ran in an election for student body president against a guy, I don't remember what his name is, it doesn't really matter, whose entire campaign was he flashes his abs and gives out Chipotle gift cards.
Mm.
Um, remember when you said $10 off of Chipotle? That's where it came back.
Oh,
The best kinds of callbacks are the ones where you just call them out. She loses the election, and after that, she does what every American does when they lose. She moved to France for a summer. That's what the movie says. I don't know that I've ever met anybody who lost something and then immediately moved.
oh, like you do.
Like you do. And so she moves to France for the summer and then comes back, and then they say, "Oh, she was never the same after that." And then you see her, and now she's wearing like all black, and she has a shirt. And I'm gonna try to pronounce this correctly, and I'm gonna goof it up.
Okay.
I wrote it down. It's l'enfer, c'est les autres. I haven't read or spoken French in a long time, but somebody next to her online says, "Oh, what does your shirt say?" And she's reading a book, and she lowers her book and looks at her with this dismissive glare, and she says, "Hell is other people." And then the lunch lady, who, again, this is high school. How... I don't know why movies like to pretend lunch ladies hate the world, but the lunch lady slaps a bunch of sloppy Joe down on her plate and on her tray. And I'm like, why would a lunch lady ever do that? You know who has to clean those trays? Lunch ladies. Why on earth would she ruin a perfectly good... Whatever. Anyways, she's basically become a French nihilist now.
I don't know why they do that to lunch ladies.
I
I
don't...
just,
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. Okay. So they go to Virginia Vanderkamp's house, and she lives in a mansion. It's not just a mansion, it's a castle. Like, this is the biggest home I've ever seen.
Mm.
And they press a button. By the way, we never meet her parents. She lives there potentially literally alone. And they press a button to ring her up, and she says, "Who is it?" And they're like, "Hey, we're trying to start a rebellion. Can you help us out?" And she's like, "No, I don't care about overturning social orders." And then
Oh.
Jody says, like, "Well, what if we framed it as like a revenge thing?" And then the doors open on their own because like she's so rich she has automatic doors. Then Virginia Vanderkamp stands in front of them with her arms crossed, and then the movie decides this is a good time for Virginia, a character in the movie, to just announce what stereotypes the movie plans on using. Are you ready for this list?
Yeah, sure.
overachievers, underachievers, emos, goths, bandos, drama dorks, orchestra, oddballs, gleeks, kids lost in Middle-earth, kids lost in space, kids who take up too much space, steampunk, cyberpunk, classic punk, kids with foreign parents, kids who are parents, twihards, kids who try too hard, kids who write binary, kids who reject the gender binary, gamers, stoners, loners, anarchists, activists, masochists, and atheists.
Anarchists, okay.
She groups all of them together as losers. How do you feel about that?
I don't like it.
I didn't either. So she then says, okay, they're like, well, this is impossible. And she says, I didn't say it was impossible. I said it was very hard to do. Come with me. And she takes them to the basement, which was apparently her campaign headquarters when she was running for student body president. I don't know why you need a campaign headquarters. Anyways, she has files on her wall. And she has a profile on every student in the entire school. Anyways, they each pull out a file for themselves. And Jody looks at her file, and she sees... By the way, at some point we got a flashback to the spyware email that she got, that she opened the attachment to, and it said that Tina Fey was doing a new project and that she needed Piccolo players, and that's how they roped Jody in. So then Jody opens up her file, and in Jody's file, under her list of weaknesses, it just says Tina Fey and Piccolo.
Okay.
And then she says, all it says is Tina Fey and Piccolo. Am I really that transparent? And then Sugar Jones looks at hers, and she says, overtly aggressive, lack of impulse control, militant with anarchist undertones. And she looks up and smirks and says, nice. And I'm like, oh my god, could they have made this character a worse stereotype? I don't really know. She's literally straight out of a blaxploitation film.
It's unfortunate, that's for sure.
Then Mindy opens hers and she sees her weakness, and it says latent Napoleonic tendencies, which doesn't count as a joke either. And then they all look at Claire and they say, Claire, what does yours say? And she, with a shy smile, she goes, oh, mine just says Girl Scout.
No,
anyway,
so
then
out.
Virginia says, we need to get the 3 kingpins of the underclass. And that is, there's a kid who's the head of the entrepreneur club, and his weaknesses are the word billions and any kind of innovation. He's basically Steve Jobs, except Asian and in high school.
All right.
It's stupid. Then there's the sci-fi dork. And the sci-fi dork, he's the head of the sci-fi club guy. His weakness is strong women. And so...
okay, Sugar Jones gonna get
Sugar
in there?
Jones steps up and says, you're a dummy. And he goes, oh, and he unzips his hoodie. And I'm like, God, stop.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then Fantasy Club guy, he's sitting there on a throne, and he's like, Whitney is the Cersei Lannister of the school. And I'm like, I don't care. Stop trying to relate to me, movie. Just end. And and everyone says stuff, and then one of them says something in one of the fantasy languages from Game of Thrones. I don't know. Anyways, all these kids, they're all down now. We've got a team. Except this team sucks, and none of them are useful. I mean, they try to make them useful, but really they're not useful. And then
so this definitely seems kind of like, in more ways than one, I'm realizing it does seem like it took a few beats from F the Prom.
Maybe. Kind of.
Vice versa. I don't know, just in this whole, we gotta take back the popular kids.
Okay, so the Girl Scout girl is driving Jody home. She stops the car. She doesn't actually stop like that. I just wanted to make a sound effect. Jody's like, well, thanks for the ride. And Girl Scout girl says, you know what? I really admire you. And she's like, really? Why? And she's like, you know, because, like, you're so open about being, and then Jody's like, rude? And she's like, or no, rubbing people the wrong way. And then Girl Scout girl Claire says, "I've never heard that euphemism before, but okay." Yeah. I mean, it's cool, you know? I mean, I've wanted to rub people the wrong way for a while, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this scene is so
Oh
cringe.
no, that's
Yeah, yeah, and so then Jody's like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And she says, "You're gay, right?" And Jody's like, "No, why does everybody think I'm gay?" Don't worry, Jody's not actually gay. They just want to play that for a goof. Ha ha! It's funny. And so
okay.
And so Girl Scout girl says like, "Oh, well, I thought you were gay because there was that one day where you walked around school all day with the sign on your back that said you were gay, and I thought you were so brave." And Jody's like, "No, someone else put the sign on my back. But you know what? It's great. I'm glad you came out to me. That's really great." And I'm like, "Okay, who cares?" And then she goes inside, and Jody sees her dad there, and her dad hands her a little pamphlet from the New York Performing Arts School. And her dad says, "Well, I think you should, I've got you an appointment. And in exchange, I told you I would get a date. I've got a date. And you see the dating website he's on. And I should have checked what kind of computer he had. It doesn't really matter, though, because much more interesting is the fact that he got a date on PezHeadsDating.com.
Okay, he knows what he likes.
It's gonna get weird when you find out who he's dating, though.
Oh no.
Mindy goes to the MIT interview, and when she goes there, she's talking all about how much she loves science. And the MIT interviewer says, like, "That's great. You're clearly a great scientist, right? You're very smart. You know your sciencey stuff. But what else do you do? Like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What
makes you a
into?
person?
What makes you a person, exactly?" And Mindy absolutely blows this question, because Mindy is terrible at reading the room. And she says, "Oh, I can recite every element. I'm the president of the science club. Let me recite all the elements for you." And then she starts. And the MIT interviewer just closes her booklet and puts her head in her hand and puts the folder down. And I'm like, what? What is the scene? Also, here's another really funny joke that the movie decides to shoehorn in, because remember when I said this movie doesn't insult any groups? Actually, it does. She's looking at a list of things, like the MIT interviewer is looking at this list of traits that she's checking off, and it's like clearly intelligent is checked off and like other things. And one of the traits on there is Asperger's. That's a trait listed, and she puts a question mark next to it.
You know what's so funny? Not really, but when you explained this interview to me, I was thinking at that point that at some point someone was going to make some sort of spectrum gag.
Yeah, well, it's so funny. What a funny goof.
It's weird because I don't know when this happened. But like it definitely seems like the TV has made it okay to like poke fun at various conditions. Like
they make a schizophrenia joke earlier in the movie that I just kind of glossed over. I didn't even mention it. But this movie just feels like they're ready to go fast and loose with these weird mental condition jokes.
But I think it's even kind of gone like broader. Like nothing is off limits anymore. Like movies will like make fun of like.
Well, if I can't make fun of women and black people anymore, I guess I'll have to make fun of the mentally ill.
I mean, you might be onto it, because this is something that, like, I get what Glee was doing, but, like, one of the things that just never sat right with me was how mean they were to Artie. He was the character in a wheelchair.
No, I remember. Yeah.
And, like, because I get that the joke wasn't necessarily, like, ha-ha, wheelchair. It was, like, haha, what a loser. He has nothing better to do than pick on this kid in a wheelchair. But at a certain point, like
You are still just
20,
picking on the kid in the wheelchair.
yeah, 20 episodes in, 30 episodes in, we're just making.
I mean, at that point, he's no longer defined by the wheelchair. He's defined as the kid who gets picked on.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's generally rude to I don't know how to put this, but like I definitely see way more like spectrum jokes now that's like the gig, I guess, which is rude. I don't know. I don't like that. Uh I don't know. Ugh. Okay. Back to this nonsense, I guess.
Yeah, so Mindy blows the MIT interview. She doesn't realize she's blown the MIT interview. Then we see Jody. She's dancing to some music in a classroom. I don't know why she's in a classroom because, like, she seems to just be moving desks around. She's not doing anything. She's not preparing anything or anything really. She's dancing to some music. Dave is walking by and he looks in the door and he's like, "Oh, hey, what are you listening to?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm listening to David Bowie." And he was listening to some music too. And she's like, "What were you listening to? Nickelback?" And he says, "Yeah, Nickelback." And he holds out his iPod and he's listening to Carole King. And she's like, "What? You listen to Carole King? That's so deep and complex. I definitely thought you were just a jock." And he's like, "What can I say? You know, I something. It doesn't matter." They flirt. Anyways, there's a giant party on Virginia's property later.
Can I just say though that like even though this movie definitely seems to have done Mindy dirty in that this was supposed to be her movie. From what I've heard about the two, I am very happy that Dave is going to be with Jody and not Mindy.
She doesn't even get a love interest in this movie.
That's great. He doesn't deserve one.
So there's a big party at on Virginia's property. When I say a big party, I mean it's so big. They have like 3 bouncy castles. They have a pool. They have multiple floors of people in windows dancing to music. Like you can see, it's a huge castle, and people are dancing everywhere. And the reason there's this big party is because during all of this other stuff that I've been talking about,
All right.
Getting these 3 linchpin dudes, the entrepreneur guy, the fantasy guy, and the sci-fi guy, getting the 3 of them on board has managed to sway basically the entire student populace.
Oh.
Question mark.
Okay.
So the cool kids are also having a party that day, and they're all alone, including Dave, who's still there. He's still hanging out with them for some reason.
And we don't find out like, yeah, but like Whitney is my stepsister. So.
No.
Okay.
Because they look at Instagram and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it. It looks like all the people are at the loser party." And Dave's like, "I'm going to go check out this lame-o party." And Whitney's like, "Oh my god, you're the worst." And then he says, "No, you're the worst." And then he leaves. And like the other people are like, the other cool people are like, "I'm going to check out this loser party too." It doesn't really matter. So then Dave ditches their party for the lame party. I'm wondering, where are Virginia's parents?
Mm-hmm.
Because this party is out of control. There are hundreds of people here, and I kid you not, Mindy's there, and she's got a bunch of like flasks and beakers and stuff, and this isn't an invisible sister situation. She's got a bunch of flasks. Card in the corner. She's got a bunch of flasks and beakers. She's pouring drinks for people with like chemicals? Question mark. And she says like, I call this the Lipschitz cocktail, and people are drinking it and getting really like, woo, that's fun. But it's not clear what she's making. They don't even try to suggest what it is.
Okay.
It could be alcoholic.
I mean,
It could also be some weird chemical thing.
I mean, they're acting like it's alcohol.
Yeah, they are. Anyways, Dave shows up, and Jody's like, oh my god, you have to tell me what happened when you ditched Whitney's party. And she runs off with Dave. And Mindy's kind of hurt. And she's like...
Oh, she doesn't want to third wheel it?
Yeah, she doesn't want a third wheel. And so then, it cuts back and forth between Mindy doing her, like, party thing, and then it goes to Jody and Dave, and they're walking through, like, a library in the home, and they get to a place with a piano, and Dave says, uh-oh, a piano. You know what this means? You have to play me something. And she's like, I don't have to. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure you do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he's got some charisma. I dig this. I like him. And he sits down at the piano, and she says, well, I have actually been working on something. And she plays a little jingle for Dave, and in the jingle, she says the phrase, the outskirts. Remember when I said that was almost the title of the movie?
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
Yeah, now's when.
Oh my, okay.
And so it's like she plays a little bit and sings like 4 lines, and then she's done. And she says like, that's all I have. And he says, that's all you have? That was great. And then they like flirt a little bit some more, and then they nearly kiss. And then
what goes wrong?
Well, you tell me what happens. What's the thing that would happen in a movie like this?
It's either Mindy or Whitney ruining things.
Okay, Whitney doesn't show up for the rest of the scene. You bet it's Mindy. Mindy opens a false wall. She's just behind. She opens a false wall and says, hey guys, and then the two of them kind of like turn back to her and they don't say anything, which is weird because I would think you would say like, oh, hey, Mindy, at least. But they don't say anything. And then Mindy says, hey, they're reenacting the Battle of Trafalgar out there if you want to join. Which is like, why would you reenact a naval battle at a party?
So that seems like you thought that was funny.
No! They play it like it's normal.
Okay.
And then...
I guess
she says, but, you guys seem busy, so I'm going to leave. And she leaves. And then the two of them stand up. And then Dave says something that does make it kind of funny. He says, I love reenacting naval battles. Let's get going. And she says, what? And then he just runs out the room. And I'm like, all right.
Evan is a very good actor. I think the movie definitely seems to have needed him, and I'm glad he was willing to help.
If he wasn't in this movie, again, I would have died. Like, I think I would have crumbled to dust.
Here's something. Me and Carina have been talking about who is going to be the dark horse in the Cavill Pettifer War. Could it be Avan Yogia?
I don't think so.
It seems like so far.
Here's why I don't think he could. And the reason I don't think he could is because 1, I don't have enough exposure to him. 2, he seems like a pretty swell guy and a good actor, and I don't think he's like so good he would replace Henry Cavill in my life, but he's definitely good to have around.
Yeah, no,
like,
not
in my heart, there's room for him and Henry Cavill because they occupy very different roles. Like, what's his name?
Avan Yogia.
Avan Yogia isn't hunk material for me. Right? Alex Pettifer wants to be. Henry Cavill is.
But Avan's got that swoop. The hair swoop.
He's got the swoop. But, like, swoop is its own category. If you brought up another swoop pretender to the throne, then maybe we could have a discussion. But right now, he is safely, let's say the Archbishop of my heart,
Okay.
while Henry Cavill's the king.
And Alex Pettifer?
He would be lucky to be the court jester.
I just love
He
this.
is a peasant shoveling garbage and dirt and cow pats. He looks good while he's doing it, like a real good trapezoid. 2 even. But that's it.
Gosh. One day Alex Pettifer is gonna just like punch us all in the face, and
I hope he punches me first so I don't have to be conscious for the rest of it.
poor Alex Pettifer.
Don't say that. Poor little rich white guy.
Little big punk white guy.
Yeah. Oh, poor little rich guy. Yeah. Screw him. Anyways. So, time passes. The movie spends about 10 to 15 minutes just showing us how the school has changed. And now everybody's being friends with each other. Or at the very least, they're being civil and interacting, and the cliques have all dissipated. And I'm like, why is this part of the movie? Just cut this. It's all boring. And then we're further in the movie, and now, the people are gathered together, and they're like, our main characters, which includes the team, the club leaders, the dudes in the group, as well as our 4 heroes and Virginia. So I guess our 5 heroes, girls, right? There's 3 guys and 5 girls. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so the guys all had to be brought on board, and so even though they are all this council is now on top of the school, the guys are like, hey, we should totally get back at the lacrosse team, even though like sports are out now and debate is in. That is the way they describe it in the movie, and so these recruited guys, they all want to cause chaos, and Mindy's like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it, and Virginia snidely says, out with the old boss, in with the new boss. And she's being a French nihilist over there. and I'm like, you're right. I mean, nothing matters anymore. And so then Jody is talking to her dad, and it's like, Dad is getting ready for the date, and it's the second date with this person, and Dad is like, okay, I don't know how to do my hair. And then Jody's like, Dad, I want you to remind you that at your age, women don't care what your hair looks like. They're just lucky that you have hair. And he says, thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Also, my date is bringing her son for you to meet, because, and Jody's like, that's weird. And it's like, it's not going to be weird. Don't worry. It won't be awkward. And he opens the door because they arrive. Who's standing on the other side of the Dad's date is here.
Oh.
With her son.
Oh, is it? No, not Dave and his mom.
Yeah, it's Dave. So Dave's mom is dating Jody's dad. And the two of them look at each other in shock. And they have dinner or whatever, which is awkward. And then afterwards, Dad and Dave's mom are chit-chatting in the living room, and Dave goes to the kitchen where he's talking to Jody, and he says, oh my god, this is so weird. And then she's like, yeah, this is really weird. We almost committed stepcest.
I mean, I'm glad you guys are really rooting for this relationship, though.
Yeah, and then Dave says, she says, you know what, just to make this not weird, I guess we're just friends, right? She holds her hand out, and Dave says, yeah, I would prefer that our family tree not have circles in it. And then shakes her hand, and then they look at each other, and he says, I shouldn't have said that because now it suggests that we're going to make children together. And she said, yeah, that made it weirder. And that's kind of funny.
That sounds funny. I enjoyed
It's a little
hearing
funny.
it. Yeah.
And I mean, the idea that they're going to commit stepcest is like, if this were a Disney Channel movie, that would not fly. They would never say something like that.
No.
Do you want to take bets on whether or not they end up together?
I feel like they totally end up together.
What about dad and mom?
I feel like they'll make it work.
Okay. Mindy no longer cares about anything because she gets a letter in the mail from MIT that says something. We don't know what.
But most likely
she
she didn't get in.
She calls Jody over and over and over, but gets no response. And now,
Why is Jody ignoring? Just because she's busy with Dave?
Busy with Dave and family. And Mindy is just dead-eyed at school, and she wants to tell Jody the news that she got waitlisted, which isn't the end of the world, but it isn't the end of the world if it's less prestigious school. But for more prestigious schools, being waitlisted is worse. Because if you got accepted to MIT, you're probably going to MIT, right? Like, so like getting waitlisted at MIT is basically getting a no. And it's basically getting a we wish we could have you but sorry, which is not great. Jody says, hey, I have Jody still hasn't told Mindy about the audition. She says, Dave's mom is dating my dad, and Mindy's like, I don't care, I got waitlisted. And Jody's like, what? And then everything's kind of falling apart because Dave walks over and says, by the way, Jody, I have a perfect song for your audition. And Mindy's like, what audition? And Jody's like, oh no, I was gonna tell you. And then Dave's like, awkward. And then they have like kind of a little bit of a row. And then Jody and Dave walk away. But Mindy's basically dead inside. Then cut to Mindy's now not cut to. We hear over the intercom, Mindy Lipschitz, would you come to the principal's office? And so we get there and we see that she's sitting there with the science teacher who gave her the pep talk earlier. And the principal is sitting there, and so he calls the science teacher like sweatshirt or whatever he calls him. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, he says, these are, Mindy, you stole chemicals and lab equipment from the school for the party. And she's like, what? No, I didn't. And then he shows her on an iPad pictures, and they're pictures from the party, the first two. And then the last one is a picture of her face photoshopped onto Jesse's face from Breaking Bad, and she's sitting next to Walter White.
That's great.
That's funny. Then they ruin it because she says, that's clearly photoshopped. And the principal goes, whatever, which is like, you had good joke momentum there.
How would you have finished it?
You don't. You just show the picture, the joke is funny to us in the audience, and she would just hand the iPad back and say like, sir, I'm being framed. She would just move on. Because like, you don't need to address it. Addressing it, calling out the absurdity of the situation isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Like, the joke is we all laugh because it's absurd.
Yeah.
And it's obviously Photoshop. If you want, she can even say, it's obviously Photoshop, which doesn't add to the joke, but it addresses it slightly. But the fact that he goes, whatever, doesn't add to the joke, doesn't help it move along.
Yeah,
also doesn't add to the plot.
Yeah. So now she gets what, like expelled or?
No, she gets suspended. And she steps out into the hall with the science teacher, who's like really shook about this. And she says, why didn't you defend me in there? And he says, I can't defend you, blah, blah, blah. He gives some really bad excuse. And she says, "You're a grown man who went to MIT, the greatest university in the world, and you're still getting bullied by a big, overgrown frat boy." Anyways, the principal lets slip that Whitney is the one who gave those pictures.
Oh.
Ruh-roh, Mindy goes to Virginia and says, "Virginia, give me the file on Whitney." And Virginia says, "Are you sure you want this?" And Mindy says, "Yes." And she takes the file and she reads it. And in my head, I'm thinking, why didn't you read this file earlier?
Because I guess it was like, these are the big guns. And so up to this point, it seems that they haven't needed them.
Yeah, but like, they're right there.
They
have every single student's weaknesses on them, and for some reason you read through every student who you wanted to get except your actual target.
Yeah.
Anyways, cuts to the next day. There's some class going on, and then it's interrupted because on the school, in each classroom, there's like a TV. The TV turns on, and there's a person sitting there and it's literally a video from Anonymous. Like, do you know the hacker group Anonymous?
I've heard of it. They like hacked somebody.
No, you're about to make no, they didn't. Whatever you're about to say, they probably didn't. Anonymous, they make videos sometimes, and their videos all look kind of the same. Their videos are basically a person in like a black hoodie and with white gloves and one of those white Guy Fawkes masks. And they've got like a computery background and an Anonymous's logo in the top corner, and he's reading to you like he's like a news anchor or something. And it's like basically they'll say like, "We have hacked into this thing." They'll announce things that they've done. Or at least they used to. I don't know what Anonymous is doing these days. Because they haven't been in the news recently. Anyways, so Mindy makes an Anonymous video. She makes a video like Anonymous. Granted, it doesn't say that Mindy did it, but obviously it was Mindy, right? Like, we just watched her get Whitney's file. So Mindy's made this Anonymous video, and she exposes Whitney's biggest weakness. Whitney's biggest weakness is kind of out there and definitely more creative than the rest of the movie.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to let you guess for this. Oh, I guess I could, but like, you're probably not going to get this one.
That's okay.
You win the whole game if you get this question.
Okay.
What is Whitney's secret?
And it's it's more convoluted.
I'll give you 3 chances, and I'll tell you bigger or smaller.
It's the most complicated thing, you said. That was
It's the most creative thing in the movie.
Okay, what is her secret? Well, I mean, is her secret that, like, she's kind of a nerd too, like Mindy?
No, bigger.
Bigger. I mean, so it has nothing to do with the fact that she had the ability to hack into
No,
Jody's
it has nothing
webcam.
to do with that. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with her abilities.
Is her secret that does it have to do with her family?
Yes.
Does she have a relative she doesn't want anyone to know about?
No. Okay. That's your second guess.
Okay.
But that's kind of, I guess, a little bit bigger than that.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Third guess. Family.
You're pretty close, actually.
Okay.
But it's not about one specific family member. It's about the whole family.
Is she actually poor?
Yup. She is not. By the way, you win the whole game.
Yay!
Whitney's house, the big mansion that she got picked up from earlier, is the homeowner's house. Her family are the servants. So Her brother, who she
Oh.
said is going to some big Ivy League school, he's actually a pizza delivery guy. Her dad is the guy who was mowing the lawn earlier, who was really happy and waving. That's her dad. And so Whitney has been putting on this act like she's this big rich girl, but she's not.
Oh, no, no, no. And Mindy's about to set that off.
Yep. Mindy exposes Whitney. And everybody is like, whoa! And
So,
everybody, it cuts to Whitney in her classroom, and everybody turns to look at Whitney, who, like, is very, like, pale, and she stands up from her desk and walks out of the room.
So Dave knows that she's poor then, right?
Why would he know that?
That's the only reason it makes sense for his character to hang around her, because he knows the truth.
No.
Oh, okay.
Nobody knows. Even her friends didn't know.
I figured, like, most of her friends, I thought he was the one person who knew. Okay.
Nah, none of them knew.
Oh, okay.
Including Mackenzie, her intern,
Oh.
didn't know. So Jody finds Mindy in the library, and Jody says, "Mindy, why did you do that? That was horrible. You did the same thing that she did to me."
Yeah.
And Mindy says, "Well, that's revenge." And Jody's like, "No, that sucks. I don't like this." And Mindy's like, "I've played by the rules for my whole life, and all it got me was mocked and ridiculed and waitlisted." And I'm like, oh my God.
Bruh.
Yeah, bruh. And Jody says, "You know what? If this is the way we're playing things, then I quit. I'm out." Uh-oh. Besties are falling out. And so, you know how there was a group of 5 girls
Yeah.
and 3 guys? So Jody leaves the group, and I thought it was going to be, now, instead of 8 of them, it was going to be 7 of them and Jody on her own, or maybe finding a new group of friends or something. For some reason, Claire the Girl Scout, Virginia, Sugar Jones, and Jody, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody.
Victoria?
No, that's Jody. Well, the four of them are together.
Mm-hmm.
They all left with Jody. Now it's just, yeah, no, that's it. Now it's just Mindy and the 3 recruited guys. Now they're the kingpins of the school.
Oh.
Shrug.
That's fine. Queen.
They're
and
not her friends. They're not her friends. They are just recruited leaders.
And what do they do?
Well, they don't even particularly like each other.
Oh.
But they
Do
vie for power.
Okay, but do we at least get a cool walk-in scene?
No.
What? You can't you can't take down the Regina
Because by this
George.
point in the movie, Mindy is completely crestfallen. And then, you ready for something that's going to throw a curveball at you?
Okay, let's go.
Now we get more narration.
What?
Yeah. Now she's like, "I can't believe I blah, 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 blah." Mindy is now talking to us again. You forgot that was a thing in the movie, and she started again.
We have been talking about this movie for so long, yes, I forgot about it.
Okay, so she says this stuff to him. It's to us. It sucks. It doesn't matter. I didn't write any of it down. The rest of the group, the 4 girls who are with the 3 girls with Jody, they're the outcasts of the outcasts. Basically, Jody decides to go to Whitney's house because Whitney hasn't been coming to school. And she goes to Whitney's house, and she sees Whitney at the servant's house, which is actually a fairly nice house too, but whatever. She's throwing garbage away. And Jody comes to Whitney's house, and Whitney's like, "What do you want?" And Jody's like, "I'm sorry." And Whitney's like, "Don't act like you're not having a nerdgasm about all of this." And Jody says, "Hey, look, I really didn't want that to happen to you, but when you did that to me, I didn't get, I didn't shut the world out and like pretend I didn't exist anymore." And I'm like, "Yes, you did. You didn't come to school. You did exactly the same thing Whitney did."
It seems like it's been a lot. I don't know, from what you're telling me, it seems like it's been a lot longer. Well,
Maybe.
actually, well, I guess also, uh, the reason that Jody didn't is because she had Mindy to go straight over there and be like, "Hey, no." So
Again,
she's paying that
except
forward.
she did. She did. She specifically says, "I didn't just stay in my room all day." And it's like, yes, you did. That is what you did.
Okay, but it's been multiple days. She got like
I
one
don't think it
day.
has been multiple days.
Oh.
It may be 2 days.
Well, maybe they were writing
It doesn't really
They
matter.
were
The movie
making...
doesn't really keep track of how long she's been gone. Because Whitney struggles to say the phrase, "I'm sorry," which is like, haha, look at that. Mean girl can't say the words "I'm sorry." She says, "I'm sorry." One of those things. And then Jody just turns around and leaves. And I'm like, that was such a nothing scene.
Yeah.
You rode your bike all the way over here just to say, "I'm sorry that happened to you," and then turn around and leave? You have nothing more interesting to say?
Apparently not.
Anyways, then next day, or whenever, it doesn't really matter, Mindy's at her locker. Mackenzie walks up and says, "Mindy, I used to be Whitney's intern, but I plan on taking over the school next year, and in order to do that, I need to follow the powerful person now. And although I don't like your dress sense, I will follow you, and you have much to teach me." And Mindy says, "No, get out of my face," and walks away. And then Mindy, yeah, because like, who cares about this? Mindy is sitting there in the library. Cut to Mindy sitting there in the library, talking to the what's it called? Her recruited leaders about prom. And one of them says, "If you got, nobody else has proposed a prom theme, so I would really appreciate it if you guys would support my prom theme." And then one of them says, "Oh, well, I will support your prom theme if you recruit your people to support me for prom king." And then the other guy says, "Well, you can't be prom king. I was going to be prom king. I was going to rule prom with an iron but fair fist." And they start arguing, and they're all just yapping at each other, and it's just annoying. And Mindy is sitting in the midst of them going, "Oh my god, I just realized I've been a complete fool." And so she decides she's gonna drug prom.
What?
She's gonna poison everybody.
What? Why is
And
that
so
the leap?
she goes to Mackenzie, and she recruits Mackenzie for this.
Okay, good, I guess.
And she says, "Here's the plan. I'm going to gas prom with truth serum. That way, everyone will tell the truth about how they really feel, instead of hiding behind fake facades."
Oh! That's it.
Okay. So she recruits Mackenzie, and Mackenzie's like, "All right, cool." Then Whitney comes to Jody at school, comes to Jody and says, "Hey, I tried talking to Mackenzie, but she wouldn't tell me anything because she works for Mindy now. But she did kind of let slip that Mindy's up to something. And you should figure that out. Also, are you going to prom?" And Jody's like, "No, I'm not going to prom. My plan was, until now, that Mindy and I were going to watch Star Wars, like the entire series, prequels included, instead of going to prom." And then Whitney says, "Well, it seems like Mindy's planning something at prom, so you should probably go." And she's like, "I'm not going." And then walks away from Whitney. Dad and Jody cut to Dad and Jody are watching Star Wars. Instead of Jody and Mindy, it's now Dad and Jody. And they're talking about the prequels. And they talk about the fight. Do you remember? Did you watch the prequels?
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember the fight. Oh my god, my Star Wars lore is failing me. I'm forgetting
The
what
big
planet
one
they were on.
between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin?
Yes. Yeah, over the lava or whatever. And they're like, why are they fighting on a hovercraft over a lava pit? I don't understand. And then she explains what's going on. And it's obviously just a cover for talking about Mindy. Where it's like, well, Obi-Wan is trying to convince Anakin to not be a total jackwagon and, something. And Dad is like, oh, I guess that's still pretty noble. And Jody's like, really? It seems like a big waste of time, especially since he's going to turn into he's going to turn into Darth Vader later. And Dad says, well, he's still a good friend for trying to stop him. And besides, nothing great ever happens by sitting on the sidelines. And Jody's like, oh no, I have to go to prom.
The horror.
Anyways, she needs to wear something, and she's searching through her closet. Luckily, we didn't get a getting dressed montage, but we're very close to the end of the film. Jody's getting dressed. She's like, does Mom have anything? Like, do we have anything in Mom's closet that would that I could wear? And then it cuts to her wearing just this absolutely garish pantsuit. It's like this hot pink mess, horrible looking. And that's what she's gonna wear to prom. Also, Dad says, by the way, Dave's mom said that he doesn't have a date, so he's coming over and you guys can go. It's not weird. And she's like, yes, it is. And that's that. Then, Mindy and, Mackenzie are doing science in the lab. They're making their truth serum, which is like, why are you doing it in the school? Whatever. The prom is 1984 themed, which is like
Cool.
not the theme that was suggested earlier, but also not a very good theme for a prom.
But
and
fascist.
it's barely themed that way. The most themed it is that when Jody and Dave go in for the picture, for like the prom picture, the guy stands on a ladder and he takes a picture of them on a green screen, and the green screen adds in a background where they're standing in front of a house, and it's like a security camera taking a picture of them on a doorstep. Which isn't a great, that's not 1984 themed.
I mean, it seems. Oh, I thought. Well, it seems like what would make more sense is it's a green screen, and the picture is like you guys standing together, but Big Brother's watching in the background.
Yeah, that would have been
A poster,
1984
yeah.
themed. This is just from the perspective of a security camera on someone's doorstep. But that's just what
Anything.
people have. We
Yeah.
really do have security cameras. Anyways, Mackenzie decides she's got the chemical. She runs over to the smoke machine and just pours it directly into the smoke machine. Closes the lid. Prom looks absolutely horrible. Nobody looks like they're having fun. Except, the prom is still supposed to look like everybody's having fun. I don't know why they have this thing. Then the truth serum is in fact affecting everybody. People are saying things that people are very blatantly like, oh, it's a truth serum, so everybody has to say the truth. And so one guy will look at another person and say oh, I can't believe blah blah blah. It's really stupid. And then the dumb girl, Whitney's best friend for the whole movie, she's there, and she starts talking about she's basically taken the position of moral pessimism, where she's like, all great suffering comes from a position of desire. She's just monologuing about it for some reason. She's smart now. And the science teacher is talking about how great Liam in One Direction is. And then the two jocks are looking at each other, and one of them says hey man, I love you. So homo. And then they both hug. And I'm like, that's not That sucks. Don't aw that.
Yeah.
Then Dave tells Jody, "Hey, I think I'm very attracted to you despite your pantsuit." And she says, "Oh." And then it cuts to them making out in the back room.
Well, people who wanted Tori and Beck to get together were disappointed. You got it.
Anyways, Jody meets up with Whitney, who's been texting her all this time, like, "Where are you? Come on." And they go to the chemistry lab. And when they go there, they're like, "Oh my god, she's already enacted her devious plan. What is all of this?" And they're looking at the chemistry set, and Jody steps out, or Mindy steps out from the darkness, and she says, "This was a plan all along to make people tell the truth." And Jody and Mindy have a really lame fight, actually. And then Whitney is about to Jody's like, "Whitney, help me." And Whitney says no and just walks away. When she steps outside, she closes the door behind her, and then waiting for her outside is Mackenzie, and Mackenzie is just like, ha ha ha, got him, because she was secretly a double agent. She calls the cops, and she's like, "Oh, someone's poisoned everybody," and she reports it to the police. The nerd fight is really dumb. They're throwing fists and dragging each other, and it's like very boring. And like it keeps cutting back and forth between prom, where they're announcing, prom king and queen. Which, by the way, when everybody's been poisoned, you would think that after they call the police would call the school and say, "Hey, everyone's been poisoned. You need to leave."
Yeah.
But no, prom is still going on. Prom king and queen are being decided. The fight it's cutting back and forth between these two. The nerd fight gets a ceasefire because Mindy needs to use her inhaler, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm exhausted." And she's about to take an inhale from her inhaler, and she chucks the inhaler at Jody. And I'm like, "What is this?" And Jody grabs her, and they tumble with the nerd fight into the prom.
Oh.
Into the prom room. And for some reason, the DJ... by the way, do you care who the prom king and queen are?
No.
Okay, so the DJ, he was playing some music. He, for some reason, decides to score the nerd fight, and he changes the music to something else. But that only lasts for like a minute, and then it cuts out. Then Jody and Mindy are yelling at each other, and it's completely pointless. And because they're under the effects of the truth serum, Mindy's like, "I didn't appreciate that you were exploring your sexuality instead of attending to my emotional needs." And then, what's her face? Jody is like, "Yeah, well, you went off the deep end. You're crazy. And maybe, I can't keep up with you. You've got big hopes and dreams, and I've got nothing. So, like, I'm sorry that everything didn't go exactly according to your plan, but, like, the rest of us live with that." And, like, they're shouting at each other, and then Whitney shows up, and Whitney says, "I want you two to understand something. It didn't take that much work, but I won. You think I give a crap what any of these people think about me? When high school's over, it's over. But I won this. It took very little effort on my part to get you two against each other.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I wanted to show you. I'm better than you." And she walks away, and I kind of want to just be like, "Yeah. Yeah, she is."
Yeah.
And while everyone is just watching this, including the principal, he's not doing anything, the Mindy and Jody are like, Jody's like, "Maybe we shouldn't be friends. We can't be friends forever, so maybe we should just stop being friends now." And Mindy's like, "You really think that?" And Jody's like, "Yeah, I really do." And then, right before they decide not to be friends, the police tackle Mindy.
Okay.
And then she gets booked, and she's arrested.
Okay.
Okay, so then, cut to, this is like the end of the movie. School is returned to normal. And the police decide not to press charges, which I'm like, I feel like that's a class action lawsuit, not a police whatever. Anyways, they decide it's a harmless prank that went a little too far. And Mindy gets suspended for a bit, and then she comes back and she talks to the science teacher, and the science teacher is like, well, you know what? It's, yeah, sorry about all that. And then she announces the moral of the movie to us, aloud, like we didn't get it. And she says, sometimes people are mean, and you can't sink to their level. And then the teacher says, it's hard when people don't give you credit. You can spend your time trying to get even, but you need to find out what really matters to you and fight for that. Which is like, why are you announcing the plot of the movie to me? Okay, so Jody goes off to the New York Performing Arts School audition.
Okay.
Okay? Mindy goes home, where she gets another letter from MIT.
Oh, they have a spot?
And she reads it, and she gets so excited. And then she pulls out her phone to call Jody.
Uh-oh.
And then thinks, should I? And then she puts her phone away and runs off screen.
Okay.
And then we see Jody panicking at the New York Performing Arts School.
Right, naturally.
And Mindy comes running in.
Oh, yes.
Somehow Mindy ran to Jody.
Okay.
There's no sense of space given at all. We don't know how far of a run that is. We don't know why, but it seems like she just ran to New York.
I think maybe they audition locally in like different states.
You would think so, but there are a lot of signs up that seem to suggest she's gone to New York for this audition.
Well, maybe they were in New Jersey to start?
Oh, so she sprinted from New Jersey to New York.
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. Mindy says, I'm sorry for being so mean and going off the deep end. And Jody says, I'm just happy to have you back. They have a very, very cringy best friend high five to get Jody all hyped up.
Mm-hmm.
Jody goes in. By the way, I would really appreciate it if you didn't have a very cringy, loud high five right outside a room where somebody's auditioning to get into a performing arts college. But fine, nobody draws attention to that. Jody goes in. Mindy is sitting outside. Crossfade to Mindy is now like taking a nap on the bench, which I'm like, how long was this audition?
Yeah.
And Mindy is sitting there. Jody comes out looking absolutely crestfallen. She looks so sad. And she shakes her head sadly. But then she smiles and nods because she got in.
Oh.
Sax, wake up!
I'm awake, I just said.
That's not an awe moment.
She got in.
Yeah, after they fake us out.
I mean, they have to. It's the rule.
Anyway, they cheer like a bunch of losers, and then we see graduation. For some reason, Whitney is the valedictorian, and I'm like, if Whitney was so smart that she was the valedictorian, why did she need anything else? Anyways,
she wanted to rule the school.
Everybody leaves. They see Whitney leaving the school, and they don't say anything to her, and she doesn't say anything to them, and it's like, why did you even draw attention to the fact that she left the school? Then they have their dumb goodbyes. We're on my last 4 bullet points. I need you to be awake for this.
Okay, I'm up.
Okay, so they have their dumb goodbyes, and what happens is, you see the nerdy guy who needed to be dominated by Sugar Jones walks up to Sugar Jones and says, hey, it would be really great if, and she cuts him off and says, yeah, I'll see you this week, which is like a weird thing to say. I'll see you this week. But like they're all like, "Oh, Sugar Jones." And she's like, "What can I say? The heart wants what it wants." And then Claire, the Girl Scout, hey, Zax, wake up.
I'm awake. The girl, just say it.
Yeah, you keep falling asleep.
Just read it.
I'm not reading.
The bullet point.
Wake up.
I'm awake.
Okay, so Claire says, oh yeah, I'll see you guys later. Or no, she doesn't say I'll see you later, because that would be a normal thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I'd really like to, say it, we don't all have to say goodbye now, right? And then then Mindy looks at her, just Mindy, looks at her and says, don't worry, I'll see you this week. And she leaves. Claire leaves.
Okay, bye.
And again, I don't understand why they're not saying see you later. Or see you this summer. They say see you this week. Which the first time meant we're going on a date, but the second time maybe doesn't, but maybe it does? I don't know. Either way, then, what's-her-face gets into the performing arts school, and the other person's in MIT, so they're only going to see each other every once in a while. One of them pulls out like a a train ticket so they can see each other, and then they struggle to ride their bikes away because they're wearing skirts for some reason. And then they do that credit sequence where you see where people end up in, but it doesn't matter. The only person who matters is that Jody and Dave end up together, but so are their parents. And that's it. That's it. That's the end of the movie.
Well, okay. It just sort of ended. Wow, this was a rough movie for you. But I enjoyed hearing about it. Yeah. Thank you for telling me about this movie. And thank you, Avin Yogia, for making it bearable. Yes.
You owe me.
What do I owe?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
One day you will pay for this.
Oh my gosh, okay. Thank you for telling me about this movie. Thank you, Avin Yogia, for making it good. I am only 50% sure that I've been saying his name right. I saw him do an interview once and that sounded like what he said, but I'm not sure.
I'm 100% sure you're asleep now.
And thank you for listening. And remember to comment, like, and subscribe because we all need friends. Okay.